Welcome to the fifth edition of Before the Battle. My name is Nick Baldwin. I'm your host, as always. You know me from MMAJunior.co. And joining me on the panel, as always, Daniel Levi of BestFightPicks.com. How you going? How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing amazing. How about yourself, Nick?
Not too bad, not too bad. And also joining me, as always, Vendetta Fighter lead writer Go Paolo. Paulo, how's it going?
What's up, Daniel? I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Not too bad. And joining me for the first time, and hopefully every episode after this, the man behind MMAsucka.com. That's also one website I write for, Jeremy Brand. Thanks for joining me for the first time, Jeremy. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's, as you guys like to say before we got chatting here, it's early on the West Coast, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all. Glad to have you on Before the Battle for the first time. So let's go back last week to UFC on Fox 16, headlined by TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Barão 2. But let's go back to the opening fight of the main card, Joe Lauzon versus Takanori Gomi. Lauzon put a beating on the Pride legend, stopping him via TKO in the first round. Daniel, what surprised you about this fight, if anything, and just your thoughts on Lauzon's performance?
You know what's funny? The thing that surprised me the most was how good Takanori Gomi looked on the feet. He came out looking the sharpest he's ever looked on the feet, and then once he got taken down to the ground, he looked the worst he's ever looked. So it was like a night and day kind of fight for Takanori Gomi, just in terms of how he looked in every area. But, we all knew that once Joe Lauzon got him to the ground, it was going to be over, but we all assumed it was going to be a submission. He TKO'd him, so, another impressive finish for Joe Lauzon.
For sure. And Jeremy, let's go to you. What were your thoughts on Lauzon's performance?
Yeah, much like Daniel there, I was surprised that it was a TKO. I didn't think that would happen, and the fact that he had to pull himself up and off of Gomi before referee stepped in, I thought that was pretty cool. That surprised me. I seen the little memes out there with Joe Lauzon's head on the referee's body, which was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, definitely. Overall, it definitely surprised me that he got it down by TKO. What didn't surprise me was that Lauzon was able to finish Gomi, but I thought it was going to be a submission. Paulo, what are your thoughts on Lauzon's performance?
Well, it was either Gomi was going to win striking or Lauzon was going to get him on the ground and finish him. And, I didn't see Lauzon TKO him. And I didn't definitely see Irv Dean pulling a Steve Mazzagatti there where he was just like, is this guy done? And, you even saw Lauzon coming back like to kick Gomi's ass some more. Then that's when Irv Dean stopped it. But, yeah, I did bet that fight. I bet the under 1.5 prop in there because Gomi, I just didn't see him making it past the first round, man. He's just so much done.
Now let's move on to Edson Barboza versus Paul Felder. And I called on the last edition of Before the Battle that I thought these guys were going to cancel out and it was going to be a lackluster fight. But I was completely wrong. This was an amazing fight. So many spinning back fists, so many kicks. Just Edson Barboza is one of the fastest guys in the UFC. This just made for one hell of a fight. So Daniel, let's get your thoughts on it.
It was a great fight, and I was very impressed with Paul Felder. I kind of have the sentiment that maybe he needed to take, one or two fights to get more seasoned before he fought, a guy like Edson Barboza. Maybe go out and beat a guy like Jim Miller or something like that. Because Paul Felder does have the talent. He does have the potential. In my opinion, he's a top 10 talent, and he's going to make waves in the UFC, lightweight division. He just needs a little bit more seasoning, and then he's really going to be a star. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's, Paulo, what are your thoughts on Edson Barboza's win over Paul Felder?
Oh, I was really impressed. The thing is, Barboza was gooder than I thought. Like he ate some big shots and he survived. I did call in our previous show that I didn't see them finishing each other, and you called it that they would cancel each other out. So all that talk about Barboza's chin being like one of the worst, I mean, it's not as bad as people say it is. I mean, it's pretty suspect, but he survived against Paul Felder, and Paul Felder went in there and tried to give it to Barboza, and Barboza stood his ground and fought back. So it was a pretty good performance from both. I think both their stocks rose in this fight.
And Jeremy, did it surprise you at all that this fight wasn't stopped? Because obviously these guys are two of the deadliest strikers in the UFC, and most people were calling a stoppage in this fight. And lots of bettors would probably play the under in this fight, but it went to decision. Edson Barboza got the job done, and what surprised you about this performance?
Yeah, no, I wasn't too surprised that it wasn't finished. The only reason I thought that it could have been finished was because of Barboza's chin. That was the only questionable thing in this fight. The one part that I thought maybe it was going to be stopped was when Paul Felder took that nasty low blow. I mean, that was a thing that I think had a lot of men on the floor in their living rooms while they were watching that fight.
And Jeremy, do you think most of the guys that say Edson Barboza's chin is really horrible and can get knocked out by a little jab or whatnot? Paulo already touched on this, but do you think some of those haters, if you want to call them that, should really just stop saying that Edson Barboza's chin is bad?
Yeah, I definitely I took away from this that his chin was a lot better than everyone thought it was. The glass jaw is took a lot of beating, and that's a good thing. So hopefully going forward, Edson Barboza can fight some more strikers just to prove that that glass chin is not really there.
For sure. Now let's move on to the co-main event of the evening. Miesha Tate put a beating on Jessica Ai. I looked really good in the first 2 minutes, but then Miesha Tate dropped her with a really solid shot, and it really just changed the fight, and really locked in that third fight at Ronda Rousey. Obviously, maybe Bethe Correia if she gets the job done tonight, but I don't see it happening. But Daniel, what were your thoughts on Miesha Tate versus Jessica Ai?
Yeah, Jessica Ai, the first 2 minutes, like you mentioned, Nick, she comes out there and she's lighting her up. But then right when Miesha Tate landed the big kibosh, that big right hand, the entire fight changed at that point. And Jessica Ai was never able to get back in the fight. So, props to Miesha Tate and her toughness, and now she's just going to get her arm broken for the third time.
What about if Bethe Correia wins, though? You never don't count out Pitbull.
Bet she ain't winning.
Anyways, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Miesha Tate's performance win over Jessica Ai?
I thought she looked great. I had her winning this fight going into it, but I had doubts. I thought Jessica Ai looked good in that countdown video. I thought her stand-up game looked really crisp, and she had something some sort of fire under her ass that she wanted to get going and push forward, and she wanted to get this big victory over Miesha Tate. But Miesha proved that she is one of the top 2-3 in the women's bantamweight division, and I don't know about you guys, but it's not necessarily a fight that I want to see between her and Rousey.
No, I really don't think so either. The only fight with Rousey I kind of would want to see is the Cyborg fight, obviously, but that's not going to happen, at least in the foreseeable future. But even if Cyborg does get that Rousey fight, I still think Rousey will lock up like an armbar or whatever. But Paulo, what are your thoughts on Cupcake's performance?
I'm actually going to go the other way. Sorry, Nick. I'm going to talk about Ai because I really didn't see that Ai's chin was not as good as I thought it was. Like, I mean, she was winning the stand-up like I predicted she was. I mean, I even bet her. And I was so confident about it. I wrote an article about it. And then she eats a punch from Tate, and everything just changes, Like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and that's exactly what happened to Ai. She ate one good, and everything changed, But I'm still not wholly convinced about Tate. I mean, I was slightly impressed by her, but I really don't buy this talk that she's suddenly this power puncher, that she's suddenly going to light Ronda up on her feet and stuff. I mean, she was eating a lot of shots from Ai before she landed that big shot. Rousey's going to break her arm, or Rousey's going to knock her out. I think Rousey's going to knock her out the third time in their third fight. So
interesting. So let's move on to the main event of the evening. TJ Dillashaw dominated Renan Barão for the second time, defending his title, bantamweight title, for the second time. Obviously, this was supposed to happen back in August of 2014. Joe Soto filled in because Renan Barão couldn't make it to the fight. Jeremy, what were your thoughts on TJ Dillashaw's performance?
An absolutely beautiful performance. The kid is on fire right now. People overlooking him still, even in this second fight against Renan Barão. There were picks out there, obviously, that TJ would get the finish in the fourth round, and look at what happened. It did. It happened, and he absolutely put a beating on Barão's face. This was an absolute thing of beauty. I can't even say anything else about it. It was a beautiful performance.
Yeah, and Paulo, let's go on to you. Any thoughts on Dillashaw's win over Renan Barão, and what's next for Dillashaw in your eyes?
I actually put a really sizable bet on TJ Dillashaw parlayed with Rousey. So the first I thought the first round he was sort of playing with him. He was super cocky in there. I was actually getting nervous because, Barrow's not no joke, man. I mean, he was in there eating his shots. I think he even got knocked down in the first round, and he was still laughing at Barrow the whole time. He was totally rope-a-doping him, and then when Barrow like gassed around the third round or so, he just completely took over and beat the crap out of him. And I thought that was a really late stoppage from Herb Dean. We really got to talk about Herb Dean in this card because he really pulled the Steve Mazzagatti. Someone needs to make a meme where it's Steve Mazzagatti ripping out Herb Dean's head and showing everyone it was him the whole time because Dillashaw got to 100-something strikes. I mean, landing 100 significant strikes for the fourth straight time. I think Herb Dean let him hit 100 because, I think those were 27 unanswered strikes before Herb Dean stopped the fight. So, no, yeah, that was bad. And who's next for Dillashaw? If it's not Cruz, which I hope it'll be Cruz, I think it's definitely a Sun Sao or God knows who else. I'd really like to see him fight Thomas Almeida in the future, though.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a fight I'd like to see, but obviously not right away. Almeida definitely needs at least 1 or 2 more wins to be considered a title contender, in my eyes at least. But Daniel, just last thoughts on Dillashaw's win over Renan Barão.
I like to talk about these guys that, they make these big improvements. You think about Rafael dos Anjos starting his career 4-4 in the UFC. You think about Matt Brown on the verge of getting his walking papers. You think about Robbie Lawler getting tapped out a bunch of times. Now these guys are champions. They're top 5 guys, and T.J. Dillashaw's in that same boat. He was just he was just a good fighter at one point, but now he's a mastermind. He's a genius. He's a virtuoso. The bond that him and Dwayne Bang Ludwig have is something that you can't buy. It's something that you can't teach, and it's something that only the two of them know about. And T.J. Dillashaw is just so impressive, and in such a short span of time. Because on my birthday 2 years ago, he lost to my buddy Rafael Assunção, and he didn't land 100 strikes that fight. But in his last 3 fights, his last 4 fights actually, he's averaging over 100 strikes per fight, and he's really just becoming a new hybrid kind of fighter. It's unbelievable to watch his progression and his evolution. So I only see bright skies for T.J. Dillashaw.
I do as well. I really only think the only option for him available that makes sense is Dominic Cruz. Obviously, you give him a Assunção if Cruz is still hurt and whatnot, but I'd like to hope that T.J. Dillashaw would be willing to wait till early next year to defend his title against Cruz again. And I know Cruz would definitely take that fight coming off the injury because he was coming off a 2.5-year injury, and he dominated Takeya Mizugaki, obviously stopping him very quickly. And Mizugaki is, in my eyes, a top 10 fighter. So I really do think there would be no ring rust or whatever. But let's move on to UFC 190. That's the pay-per-view card today, headlined by Ronda Rousey versus Betch the Pitbull Correia. Let's start off at the let's actually talk about the headlining prelim quickly. In my eyes, this is one of the closest fights on the entire card, and one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most. Neil Magny taking on Demian Maia. Now, Demian Maia is ranked number 6 in the welterweight division. He's always been one of those guys who couldn't quite crack the top 3 or whatnot, but he's always been up there in the top 10. And then Neil Magny is riding a 7-fight winning streak, but he hasn't fought. He's never fought the competition of Demian Maia, pardon me. And so this is one of the most interesting fights on the entire card, actually. So let's go to Daniel. What are your thoughts on this fight, and who do you have taking the win?
This is absolutely one of the most intriguing fights on the card. You talk about Neil Magny on the 7-fight win streak. Prior to that 7-fight win streak, a lot of people were thinking he should get cut from the UFC, and a lot of people were saying that, we don't like his style, this and that. Now he's become a fan favorite, and everyone loves him because he's had 7 fights in a span of a year and a half, and he's getting better every single time he fights. He trains out of Team Elevation, so he's got the cardio because of that altitude. And if there's one thing that a guy like Demian Maia struggles with, it's his conditioning in the later rounds. So I think what's going to happen is that, Demian Maia is going to come out. He's going to take him down in that first round, maybe get that full mount. But if Neil Magny's smart and you watch that Rory McDonald fight, he's going to use those butterfly hooks effectively, get back up to the feet. And once Demian Maia starts showing a little bit of weakness and starts getting tired, that's when Neil Magny is going to tee off on him, show his youth, and get that upset victory.
And Apollo, what are your thoughts on this fight? Are you with Daniel? Do you have the underdog actually taking the win here?
You know what? I've been back and forth in this fight for so many. Like I don't even know who to pick right now, but I'm gonna lean slightly on Neil Magny actually. I might actually change my Maya pick to Magny too, but the only thing I'm concerned about Magny, like a lot of people said, is that he hasn't fought a competition like Damian Maya yet. And he had a 7-fight winning streak, but he had a 7-fight winning streak against a lot of, I think all of them were unranked. The best guy he beat was, I think, Hyun-Gyu Lim. And the thing about Magny, the reason why he's such an exciting fighter is he gets in so much trouble in a lot of his fights. I think against, I forgot his name, but he almost got submitted against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy until he got tired and knocked him out. Against Hyun-Gyu Lim, he was getting lit up, and then he outlasted him and finished him eventually. And I thought he lost that fight against Alex Garcia. I mean, and Alex Garcia blew his ACL during that fight. So that's just the thing that's concerning about Magny. If he gets into hot water against Maya, I mean, can he survive and will himself to win again? I'm gonna lean slightly and say yes. He's probably the first round's probably gonna go to Maya, and then he's gonna win the next 2 rounds. But you know, because this fight is in Brazil, I really don't know if the judges are gonna side with Magny. But I'm gonna lean Magny here very slightly.
And Jeremy, are you going to be the 4th person on this panel to side with the fresher fighter, or are you going with the veteran?
This is a fight. I think this is the toughest fight to pick on the entire card, to be honest with you. I like what everyone's saying about, you know, the first round being Maya's. I think it'll go that way as well. I don't think this fight goes to a decision. I think someone's going to get the stoppage. But if you look at some of the stats on the card, or on this fight, the takedown defense of Neil Magny is actually really, really good. He's got a better takedown defense and better takedown accuracy than Maya. So we could see Neil Magny getting the takedowns rather than Damian Maya. And if that's the case, then I am going to side with him. And I think he does get a stoppage either late 2nd round or early 3rd round.
All right, let's go on to the opening bout on the main card, Claudia Gadelha versus Jessica Aguilar. And I think these lines are way off. I actually favor Aguilar in this fight, but she definitely should be the underdog. But Gadelha should not be. I've seen lines minus 400. In my opinion, that's insane, and you got to take a stab at Aguilar if you bet on MMA. So, Jeremy, who do you have here, Aguilar or Gadelha?
I'm taking Jag as well. I think that she's coming into this on her high horse as a former champ in another organization. Gadelha is a great fighter. She only has 1 loss on her record, but I think Aguilar will be able to push the pace. She knows what it's like to be in there with the top of the top. She's fought some of these UFC fighters in the past under other promotions' banners, and I think she's going to do what it takes to get the unanimous decision in this one.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. And you bring up a very good point. You know, obviously, when you talk about Gadelha versus Aguilar, you know, Aguilar was widely considered to be the best strawweight fighter outside of the UFC for the longest time, and Gadelha just went, you know, 3 hard rounds with the current champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and a lot of people actually thought that Claudia Gadelha won that fight, but, you know, interestingly enough, in my book, I actually scored it for a Jędrzejczyk, and I'll tell you why right now, because, you know, obviously, Claudia Gadelha, she did have 7 takedowns in that fight, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk had 2 knockdowns, and, you know, if Gadelha took her down 7 times and, you know, passed guard, landed big elbows, beat her up, broke her will, okay, then I say 30-27, but that's not the tale of what happened. What happened was she took her down, and, you know, Jędrzejczyk gets back up to her feet, and she drops Gadelha twice. So for that reason, I scored the fight for Joanna Jędrzejczyk, but in terms of this fight, it's going to be very interesting. I have to favor Gadelha just for the sole fact that she has that UFC seasoning, that UFC experience, but Aguilar is no joke. So, I mean, I'm just going to pass and enjoy it as a fan.
For sure. In my opinion, this is definitely a close fight. And Paulo, did you give your opinion on this fight yet?
No, not yet, but I'm going to side with Gadelha on this. This is the type of fight where it's a dog or pass because laying minus 450 or whatever she is now, and Gadelha is just crazy. If it's anything, I've said this over and over, women's strawweight fights are, like, that's just crazy money you're putting there. I think Gadelha is slightly... I'm picking Gadelha because she's like such a beast, man. I mean, look at her. I think she's more ripped than Barrow and Aldo too. Like crazy. She has the best abs in the UFC. And let's not forget this fight's in Brazil. I mean, Daniel brought up the Phil Davis Lyoto Machida robbery in Brazil, but for every Lyoto Machida Phil Davis robbery, you're gonna have the other way around where it's the Brazilian who gets the favor for the judges. I think it's gonna be a really close fight. The only thing I'm confident on is this fight's gonna go the distance, and I think Gadelha is gonna win by 2 rounds out of 3.
Interesting. Let's go on to the first heavyweight bout on this pay-per-view card. Bigfoot Silva versus Soa Palele. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think Bigfoot should be fighting anymore. A 2015 Bigfoot Silva is a guy that can get touched and will go down, in my opinion. So, Paulo, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on this fight? And do you have Bigfoot actually pulling off the upset this time around?
You know what? This fight is I don't know. I might not watch this fight at all. I'm gonna feel really sorry if Bigfoot gets knocked out again. I mean, he looks like one of the nicest guys ever. He looks like he can't even hurt a fly with just how soft-spoken and nice he is. It's amazing that he's a fighter. But you know, the punch that Mir landed on him Mir didn't even load up on that. That's so different from the punch that Mir landed on Duffy, where Duffy completely ran into it and Mir just caught him with like a vicious hook. This one, Mir just threw a quick jab and dropped Bigfoot right away, and he was done from there. So, Palele, I really don't trust his striking that much. I think this is the biggest step up in competition for him. But right now, I think even a stiff breeze could knock out Bigfoot. So, it's definitely a betting perspective. It's a total pass, and I'm gonna pick Palele by knockout first round.
And Jeremy, are you siding with the Hulk here?
Yeah, I am actually. I agree with what Paulo said there. That a breeze could knock down Bigfoot here, but it's tough to see it. It sucks that a guy that had so much potential from the Strikeforce days turn around and because of the whole TRT ban and all that stuff, he's not able to be the same guy that he was. And it sucks because both these guys are definitely by no means great heavyweight fighters, but one guy is going to turn on an extra win streak here, and the other one is going to fall and probably not end up fighting anymore.
Yeah, and Daniel, are you siding with Soa Palele or Bigfoot Silva here?
I'm for sure siding with Soa Palele, and I'll tell you why right now. You know, a couple years ago, Bigfoot Silva would have been an upwards of 5-1 favorite over Soa Palele, but, you know, the times have changed, and he has a medical condition where, you know, he probably shouldn't be fighting anymore. You know, he needs that TRT, you know, that therapeutic use exemption. He legitimately needs that, and they're not letting him have it, and, you know, it's just really bad news for him because, like you guys alluded to, he just gets touched and he goes down. You know, Frank Mir knocked him out with a 1-3. When I think of a 1-3, I look at that as the setup for the 2. He got knocked out by the setup punch. Another thing is, not only is his chin terrible, his standing technique is absolutely awful. You know, when you're standing up, you're supposed to have your hands kind of like this, and you block, you know, those hooks out like this. He keeps his hands right here, so all you got to do is just hit his hands, and they'll hit himself in the face. I mean, it's terrible striking technique. Anyone that's ever taken a Muay Thai class knows that Bigfoot Pesao Silva isn't doing the proper striking techniques, and he's going to get knocked out by Soa Palele. But here's the interesting part about it. Soa Palele doesn't knock guys out on the feet too much. He usually takes guys down and knocks them out with ground and pound. So I think that, you know, he's going to get that Australian takedown, pass to that full mount, and knock out Bigfoot Silva.
Sorry, Vitor Belfort, but it's true. Bigfoot Silva is the only guy that really does need TRT here. Not you, but who knows?
He's Jesus.
It's too Jesus. They were allowing Bigfoot Silva to use TRT, then they ban it, but he really does need it with his medical condition and whatnot. He's never going to be the same fighter. He's going to get knocked out easily, and this is a gimme fight for Soa Palele, in my opinion. I'm very confident in the Hulk, and the Hulk by no means is a top 10 heavyweight, even in the very shallow heavyweight division. In my opinion, he's just like a good fighter. He will beat some guys, but he's not going to be top competition or anything like that. But Bigfoot Silva, he's not top competition anymore. He's in the rankings and whatnot, but he's not top competition. I would fade Bigfoot Silva against nearly any heavyweight right now just because of how bad his chin is. And Palele's, what's going to happen in the first couple punches Palele throws, he's going to knock Bigfoot Silva down and then just use some nice ground and pound and finish the job. But that's really all I'm going to say on that. Now let's go to Stefan Struve versus Big Nogueira. Now who do you have here, Daniel?
You know, it's interesting because you think that Nogueira is the older guy that should retire pretty soon, and he is, but Struve, he's 27, but he should probably retire soon too. And not just for the fact that he's been knocked out 7 times in his career, but for the fact that he has a heart condition now, and he has severely debilitating anxiety attacks, as you saw in that backstage before he fought Matt Mitrione. But the guy's getting knocked out all the time, and he has that really, really, that bad chin and that heart condition. Now, here's another thing I want to talk about. When he made his UFC debut, he weighed 229 pounds. Then he gets a little older, he puts on more size, and, he weighed about 245. Now he's cutting weight from 275 to 265. And if you know anything, I'm not a doctor, but if you know about the heart, that more weight makes the heart work harder. And that's going to really not be good for Stefan Struve. So, I think Bigfoot Silva's going to walk him down. He's going to slip a couple punches, land an overhand right, and knock him out. And go out in style in Rio.
You mean Big Nog?
Yeah, Big Nog.
Right, Paulo, who do you like here, Big Nogueira or Stefan Struve, the skyscraper?
Oh, I really like Big Nog on this matchup. The only thing I'm concerned about Big Nog is, as you can say, he's sort of like a shop-worn fighter, and as Daniel said, actually, Daniel didn't say it, but I was thinking about someone else. No, it's because he's a shop-worn fighter. So, and the thing is, Struve also has all these medical conditions on him. There's so many unknown variables here that could really change the fight. But in my opinion, Big Nog's just much more skilled. I think he's the more skilled boxer, and I think he's definitely the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. So the fight, wherever the fight goes, it favors him. I'm just concerned, if Struve hits him, he's gonna go down, because that's an entire possibility. But I mean, the guys who knocked him out, Cain Velasquez, Roy Nelson, and Frank Mir, and those guys have huge knockout power. So you can't really say that his chin is completely horrible at this point because he got knocked out by Roy Nelson bomb. So I'm gonna go with Big Nog here. I think he's gonna knock down Struve and submit him.
And Jeremy, who do you like here, Stefan Struve or Big Nog?
Yeah, I'm going with Big Nog as well. I think he's the battle-tested fighter in this one. He's been in the cage and the ring with the best of the best from the Pride days to the UFC days. He's been in there with them all, and he's done what it takes to beat some of these guys. And the only losses that he has to these guys are either knockouts or crazy decisions. So I think Big Nog is the guy to pick. The only thing that has me thinking is that Stefan Struve is getting in there with a new camp. He's training with the Black Zillions. His stand-up game did look good in the videos with Henry Hooft there, but I've never liked the way Stefan Struve stood in his fights. He lives his chin way out there, his hands way down. Of course, he's 7 feet tall, so it doesn't really matter if your hands are down because it's going to take a lot to get to you. But Big Nog has some of the best boxing in MMA. And if he's able to land some of those combinations, Stefan Struve, that skyscraper is getting taken down.
I can't believe Big Nog is going to win a fight in 2015, but I like him here against Stefan Struve. Obviously, this is one of those fights where I don't think either of these guys' chin are great, far from it, really. And if Stefan Struve lands a couple hard punches, Big Nog, in my opinion, is going to go out. And other way around, if Big Nog lands a couple punches on Stefan Struve, he's going to go out. So it really depends on who lands first. And like Jeremy said, Big Nog has some of the best boxing in the UFC, and I like him here. I think he's going to knock the skyscraper out, probably the first or second round. Now let's, I guess, quickly talk about the two tough finals. I don't really know too much about these guys. We have Reginaldo Vieira versus Delano Lopez. Daniel, I know you did the most research, most likely. So who do you like here? Vieira versus Lopez.
I like Lopez, and I'll tell you why right now. This kid is 19-1. He trains out of Nova União with Renan Barão, Jose Aldo, Johnny Eduardo. So not only is he coming into the UFC, training with all those killers and current UFC champions, former UFC champions, but the kid is 19-1, so he's already seasoned, he's already experienced, and he's a finisher. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go with Delano Lopez. You guys need to watch out for this kid.
And Apollo, who do you like here?
I'm going to pick Reginaldo. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to pick Lopez, but I really had this temptation to bet on Reginaldo, but that would be a bet on my heart, and that's not a smart decision to make. Lopez is just a much better fighter overall. He's a much better striker. He's really good on the ground. And Reginaldo's only chance of winning this is by basically like John Fitching him. And I don't see that happening because Reginaldo's this fighter. I really didn't think much of him during the show, but he won by outworking all his opponents. He beat the Team Shogun's #1 overall pick. And actually, no, he didn't beat him. He lost him by controversial split decision, but I thought he won that fight. And then he ends up beating Team Silva or Team Nogueira's #1 pick in his next fight, in his make-up fight. So, but it's hard to say because, like, in Tough, they really fight weird. Maybe some of the fighters, they gas out a little bit too soon. Maybe they don't have a lot of time to prepare, so they're not themselves. With a full training camp and everything, I definitely favor Delano Lopez? Yeah, Delano.
And Jeremy, I know you probably didn't watch any, or if you did, very little of Tough Brazil 4. Who do you like here, though?
I like Lopez as well. I was basically going to say who gives a crap about either of these two fights. Let's just skip them over. But I'm taking Lopez as well. And the only reason I know anything about this guy is because I did pick him in my DraftKings game, so I had to do a little bit of research. Daniel said the 19-1 record. I noticed that, but during the weigh-ins yesterday, they said Brazilians can have padded records. But with the guys that he trains with, I do believe he is the real deal. So I'm taking Lopez in this fight, and even though I don't care about it.
Yeah, I flipped a coin. I didn't watch any of Tough Brazil 4, and it landed on Vieira. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know anything about these guys. I'm not sad to say I didn't do any research on this fight, so I'm not putting these guys on my counter move or DraftKings or anything like that. But the coin landed on Vieira, so I'm gonna stick with it, even though you guys kind of persuaded me to pick a. Lopez, I think his name is. But let's just move on to the next Tough Brazil 4 finale. Let's get that over with and then move on to the real fights that should be on the main card, in my opinion. Let's go on to Gleikau Franca versus Fernando Bruno. Daniel, like I said, you probably do the most research on these unknown guys. Who do you like here?
I'm leaning towards Franca, and I'll tell you why. He has around an 8 to 10 inch reach advantage. He's also the younger guy, and he's a finisher. He's got a lot of experience. So for that reason, I'm leaning towards Franca to get the victory here.
And Jeremy, who do you like here?
Sure, I'll side with Daniel.
And Paolo, you siding with Daniel and Jeremy, or are you siding with me?
Oh, you didn't even say who your pick was. You said your pick was Astugero, aka Bruno?
No, I'm picking Bruno, yeah.
I was initially going to pick Bruno, but I really like Franca. That guy was impressive in the show. He subbed the guy whose name was Neto BJJ. You don't just sub a guy whose name is Neto BJJ, okay? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, but in all seriousness, this guy just has a lot of the tools to be one of the better fighters, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people if and when he wins this fight and he goes on to win a couple more fights in the UFC. So I'm going to go with Franca here, aka Gleikau.
Like I said, I got Bruno. Flipped another coin for this one. It landed on the opposite fighter you guys are picking, and hopefully I'm right, but I doubt it. Let's go on to the co-main event of the evening. Shogun Rua versus Little Nog, a rematch back from Pride, back when I was like 5 years old, so this will be interesting for me anyways. Who do you like here, Daniel, Rua or Little Nog?
Well, this is in Brazil, so we got to pronounce his name correctly. It's Mauricio Shogun, and with Mauricio Shogun, the thing with him is he's one of these guys that's ultra talented, and he has to show up in order to win the fight. He can't train out of Brazil and not go to the gym every single day. He needs to move out of Brazil, go to LA with Master Rafa, because that's when he produces his best results. That's when he comes out and knocks guys unconscious. So that's exactly what he did. He brought his family with him to Los Angeles. He's training under Master Rafael Cordeiro, the same man that produced, Rafa dos Anjos, the lightweight champ, Fabricio Werdum, the heavyweight champ, Benny Dariush, top 10 lightweight contender. So, Mauricio Shogun, he's training with him, and I think that's going to make a big difference. It's going to pay dividends. He's going to come out there, knock out Rogerio Nogueira, and, maybe ride off into the sunset.
And Jeremy, who do you like here? Which Brazilian Pride legend do you like here?
Yeah, I can't believe that this is the co-main event, but I'll have to agree with Daniel. It's pretty rad that Shogun trained in LA under King's MMA, and he's gonna come into this one Big Nog will win his fight. Little Nog is going to get knocked out, and unfortunately, he's going to get shoveled out of the octagon while Shogun is going to have his hand raised.
All right, and Apollo, who do you like here, Shogun or Little Nog?
I hate having unanimous decisions here, but I'm gonna have to side with Shogun. I really want to pick Lil Nog just to play devil's advocate here, because you know what, Shogun, his chin it's not the best right now, guys. Let's be honest here. That used to be one of his biggest trademarks, that he could just eat any shots and keep going. But you know, OSP, a lot of people keep saying OSP is this massive power punching guy. I mean, OSP does have a lot of power, but when was the last time Shogun got knocked out with one punch? The only two guys I can think of is OSP and Hendo, and those were his last two fights. So his chin is definitely a concern. But for all the points that Jeremy and Daniel said, I'm still gonna pick with Shogun because I think he's the much better fighter. And Lil Nog, his chin is better than Shogun right now, but Shogun knocks everyone out, man. Like, you do not just survive Mauricio Shogun Hua unless you're like John Jones.
All right, I got a Shogun here too. You guys wrapped it up pretty nicely. This is the fight that whoever gets jabbed first is going to go down and get their lights turned off or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. I like Shogun here. First round knockout for me. I got him on my counter move team, but you can't be confident with Shogun win. He will get knocked out by one little punch. We saw with OSP, like Paulo brought up. And then obviously you got to credit Lil Nog a little there for staying in the cage with Anthony Rumble Johnson, just to go to the cage and actually fight and not like pussy out against Anthony Rumble Johnson. That I gotta credit you for that already. But he did get knocked out brutally. But it's Anthony Rumble Johnson. Where this is OSP. OSP, like Paulo said, does have a lot of power, but not nearly the amount of power as Anthony Rumble Johnson. But back to the fight. I don't know. It's another one of those flip a coin fights, but I do know these guys a little bit, so I'm going to side with Shogun here. Let's go to the main event of the evening. Let's not spend too much time on this because it's only going to last 20 seconds. So who do you like here, Ronda Rousey or Bethe Correia, Paulo?
Oh, you know what? I really like Bethe Correia here. No, I really don't. I'm sorry, I tried saying that with a straight face for more than 10 seconds and just couldn't do it. Yeah, do you really need me to break down this fight? You know what, Bethe Correia, I'll give Bethe Correia some credit here. She is undefeated. She is 3-0 in the UFC, even if I thought she lost that fight against Kedzie, which was her debut fight. And never mind the fact that all the fighters she beat in the UFC are combined 1-7 in the UFC, and they're all gone in the UFC. Well, Duke hasn't been officially cut yet, but I think she will be cut. And I just can't see her winning, man. Maybe something crazy happens, and maybe she lands. Maybe Ronda gets a little bit too crazy. Maybe she does it Vitor Belfort style, where she throws a punch and the tip of her glove catches Ronda in the eye, and then Ronda gets, cut, and then the referee stops the fight, and then we have a new champion or something. Maybe something like that crazy happens. That would really be something to see. But no, I've gone on for this for too long. No, Ronda by armbar.
How many seconds do you think it's gonna last?
I don't know. I don't know. Let's just say 47 seconds.
Interesting. So, Jeremy, who do you like here? Obviously, you're going to say Ronda Rousey. How quick do you think it's going to end? Do you think it's going to be an armbar, TKO? How do you think Rowdy's going to defend her title?
I think it'll be a submission. I actually think it's going to be in the second round. I think that she's going to toy with her a little bit in the first round. And I hate the way the UFC is promoting this fight. I hate that they are saying that Bethe is, the stand-up striker that is going to be able to test Ronda Rousey. She's going to be able to throw her will at the Rowdy one, and Ronda shouldn't stay on the feet with her, because if you look at all three of Bethe's fights, they're crap. Honestly, as Paulo said, she basically lost to Julie Kedzie. She then fought Jessamyn Duke to a decision, and we all know how bad Jessamyn Duke is. She is not a good fighter. The fight against Shayna Baszler, who cares? She lost round one, in my opinion, to Baszler. She lost that first round against Shayna Baszler and then ended up finishing her in the second. She's fought three crappy fighters, and Ronda Rousey's going to have her way with her. I honestly think Rousey picks her apart on the feet. I think she's going to be able to land the punches and stick with her. And if Bethe gets all over her and grapples with her or tries to clinch, then Rousey's just going to take her down and armbar her. But I think the first round is her going to be toying with her, and she's going to get the finish in the second. I spoke way too much about that as well.
Like I said, it's only going to last a few seconds, so no need to talk about it too much. But Daniel, let's get your thoughts on the fight.
You know, people act like my boy Conor McGregor talked his way into a title shot, and that's not true. I'll tell you who talked their way into a title shot. Betchy Correia talked her way into a title shot because, you know, my boy Conor, you know, he knocked out Dustin Poirier, he 30-26 Max Holloway, knocked out Chad Mendes. Now he's getting his title shot. You can't dispute it. Betchy Correia, you know, she controversially defeated Julie Kedzie. She got judo throwed by Jessamine Duke. Let me ask you guys something. Who has the best judo throw in the UFC?
Jessamine Duke.
So we all know Ronda Rousey, not only does she have the best judo throw in the UFC, but once she gets you on the ground, she's going to take your arm, she's going to break it, she's going to take a shovel, dig a grave, and throw that arm right in there. And that's exactly what's going to happen tonight, UFC 190 live on pay-per-view in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, because Betchy Correia, she's way in over her head. And this is a mismatch in every sense of the word. She is going to get destroyed. All this talk about, you know, Ronda dragging it out, this and that. Look, dragging it out means that she's going to break her arm before the ref stops the fight. Dragging it out means that it's going to last 30 seconds instead of 10. So I don't buy any of this pre-fight talk, and I think we're going to see greatness tonight in Rio.
Yeah, like Daniel said, by dragging it out, Ronda Rousey is saying she's going to drag it out, and maybe she does mean she's going to take it to the third and fourth round, but that's all talk. If she gets a hold of her arm and could literally finish the fight in 30 seconds, she will finish the fight. She's not going to let go of an arm bar or whatever. She's not going to stop punching Betchy Correia if she's down or whatever. She's going to finish the fight, and I like Ronda Rousey very quickly, probably within the first minute. I don't think she's going to toy with her at all, like Jeremy said. I really don't see it going out of the first round, and Ronda Rousey is going to retain her championship belt. But I just have one thing. I don't know if I want to buy the pay-per-view, because maybe I could just watch the replay on Instagram or something like that. It's going to last 10 seconds or something like that. But
you better buy the pay-per-view. Always support the sport. Let's see. Mauricio Shogun versus Little Nog. Bigfoot Silva versus Soa. You got this kid that's 19-1 in Delano Lopez. You got Ronda Rousey, the greatest athlete in the UFC. Claudio Gadelha versus Jessica Aguilar. You better buy this pay-per-view and support the sport, my friend.
Excuse me.
I don't know. It's not my money, so it's not my decision. But I don't know. We might buy it. I'm not sure though. Ronda Rousey, her fights are just too quick in my opinion. Plus, the whole card is more of a guy for who the biggest fan of Pride, and I was 5 years old when Pride was around, so I don't know what Pride is even. But I think
a lot
that's
of
about
finishes
it.
here, Nick. Come on, I think the main card could have 7 finishes, man. That's not well, except maybe for the Gadelha Aguilar fight.
The preliminary fights, in my opinion, are just as intriguing. We have Demian Maia versus Neil Magny, and that's, in my opinion, if not, I'd tie Gadelha versus Aguilar and Magny, Maia for the most intriguing fights on the card. I think those are the two closest fights, and those are the two fights I'm really excited for. And one is on the prelim card, and we have Yuri Alcantara. I'm sure his stock dropped a little bit after Frankie Saenz loss, but he's still a decent fighter, decent bantamweight fighter. And I don't know, it's just the main card is one of those fights where there's so many flip a coin fights because anyone can get knocked out because all their chins are so bad. But anyways, let's talk counter move quickly. I know we all play counter move, so Daniel, why don't you just run us through some counter move picks that you're making? You're a team, some fights to avoid, nice cheap picks you're making, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, my counter move team that I'm going to use to beat my friend Nick Baldwin this weekend consists of Soa the Hulk Palele, Rafael Feijão, which is going to be very interesting because he could get grinded, but I have a feeling he's going to knock Cummins out like he did to Yoel Romero, King Mo, and all the other great wrestlers he's fought besides Bader. And Ronda Rousey, Neil Magny, and then, with the price cap, I had to have a little tiny throwaway, so I put in Leandro Issa in there. So we'll see what happens.
All right, and Jeremy, I know you play counter move and DraftKings. Give us your counter move team and your DraftKings team.
Well, I'm trying to log into my counter move game, but it's... Oh, here we go. I'll give you my DraftKings game to start then, since I'm right here. My DraftKings team consists of Jessica Aguilar, Lopez, as I said earlier. That was the only research that I did in him. I believe Neil Magny as well. Ronda Rousey, because honestly, I think if you don't have Ronda Rousey in your DraftKings game, because DraftKings is sort of that casual fan game, not the hardcore fan game at this point, I think 99% of the people out there are going to have Ronda Rousey on their team, and if Rousey gets this finished quick like she should, then you're going to lose if you don't have her in your game. And then my final pick was Nordine Taleb, which is an underdog pick, but I think he takes this one.
Interesting. And
then
Paulo, DraftKings, right.
Yeah, no, my counter move game, I'll take you there, which is also a one-on-one like Daniel against Nick Baldwin here. Just letting it load up just one sec here. Go to Paulo, I'll come back to it.
All right, Paulo, who do you like here in a counter move?
You know what, Nick? I've changed my team like 57 times. I can't even remember who I actually had. I had to load my counter move team. But right now I have Shogun, I have the Hulk, I have Vitor Miranda, I have Hugo Viana, and I have Rousey. No, I'm kidding. I don't have Rousey. I have Leandro Issa. Yes, I didn't put Rousey in my counter move team. For that price, I think it's not worth it, man. She's gonna sub Correa in like what, 20 seconds? How many points is that gonna get her? Come on, it's not worth it. 6,000? You're gonna have to pick like two fighters at 4,200 to fit Rousey in, and someone like Shogun in there or something, man. So yeah, I had to take Rousey out of my team.
And Jeremy,
I got mine up here. I got Soa Palele, Patrick Cummins, Ronda Rousey, Nordine Taleb, and Jessica Aguilar.
All right, and my counter move team is Big Nog versus Stefan Struve. I got Zoa Palele knocking out Bigfoot Silva, like I said. I got Mauricio Shogun Hua knocking out Little Nog. I got Neil Magny taking a competitive decision against Demian Maia. And my underdog pick is Jessica Aguilar. I think she'll just pull off, just do enough to beat Gadelha. I think she'll pull off a close decision. I think that's about it. So let's go to... So Daniel, plug anything you need. Obviously, best fight picks, MMA thought. Give us what's coming up, and just let us know where we can find you on Twitter and any other social media.
You can find me on Twitter at bestfightpicks, or you can go to bestfightpicks.com, type your email in the top right corner, and get the best fight picks sent directly to your inbox every single fight week. Also Wednesday and Thursday, depending where you are on the globe. Myself and Flying Brian, we do the Flying with Best Fight Picks podcast. Break down the entire card start to finish, let you know which place to place, your counter move team, UFC pick'em, the entire ordeal, and my new show, Half the Battle, which I'm having a lot of fun with. You know, I had James Vick on this week, and we sat down for an hour, had a really good talk. So I do that every single week during fight week, and it's different than the Flying with Best Fight Picks podcast because we don't just, you know, break down the card from start to finish. We talk about controversial issues. We have a lot of fun on there. So Half the Battle, go to SoundCloud, subscribe to Best Fight Picks, go to YouTube, subscribe to Best Fight Picks, and follow Best Fight Picks on Twitter.
And Paula, where can we find you on Twitter, Facebook, and just plug anything you need to plug for a Vendetta Fighter, today's knockout, and whatever else is going on in the life of Go Paolo.
Well, you pretty much plugged all of it for me, but yeah, writing for Vendetta, find us at Vendetta Fighter. The site is actually going through a little bit more changes right now, so we're trying to produce a little bit more original content on it. You know, you don't need another site breaking out all the news that all these 50 other sites are breaking out, so we're going to try to produce a little bit more original articles for that. You can find it at Today's Knockout. You should check that site out. If you're a pro wrestling fan, you should also check that site out. A boxing fan, we cover all of those. I cover particularly performances of the night, so every time something crazy or weird or bad happens, I'm going to write about it the following day. And of course, I help run one of the largest UFC Facebook group, UFC. We have over 75,000 members. We're trying to clean up that group a little bit right now, getting rid of all the trolls, getting rid of all the flamers and all the bad people on there. So it's a work in progress, but if you're on Facebook, you should hit us up and come join the conversation.
And Jeremy, where can we find you on the Twitter? And obviously you're the owner of MMA Sucker. What's coming up on there for you?
Yep, make sure you check out MMAsucker.com, on Twitter at MMAsucker, myself on Twitter at JeremyBrand604. Always got the goods. We got some a couple great pieces out by Mike Fagan this past week, sort of talking about UFC Fight Pass, what's going on with it, as well as Will Ronda Rousey Draw was a great piece that he put up as well. Also, make sure you check out Sucker Radio. It drops each and every Thursday around 7 a.m. Pacific time, pre-recorded interviews on there. This past week we had Beneil Dariush. That one should be good. King's MMA fighter. So that's about it. Check us out, MMAsucker.com.
And as for me, you can check out my website, mmajr.co. We cover just UFC and BAMA. That's a large UK promotion. We'll have lots of pre-fight and post-fight coverage of UFC 190. Check me out on Twitter at NickUFC. Follow MMA Junior on Twitter at MMA Junior _. So that's at MMAJUNIOR _. And check out my podcast, my weekly podcast. I host that with John King. He hasn't been on for the past couple episodes. He's getting a new microphone, so he hasn't been able to record those. But check it out, MMA Junior Radio. We have guests on every show. We break down fight cards, talk about MMA news. This past week we had two guys on the Nashville card, Frankie Saenz and Roman Salazar. We also had Andrew Lawrence, the host of Before the Bald Man Speaks, post-fight show on there. Next week we have James Krause and Zach Cummings and possibly Aaron Robbins, the host of the Standard Bank podcast. And I think that's about it. So thanks to you guys for coming on the 5th edition of Before the Battle. And until then, enjoy the fights.